Hello, YouTube again, or wherever I end up posting this. As you can see from the last time you saw me, well, I got a new look now. Anyway, I figured I'd just do a quick recording to show, as best I can anyway, sort of like a POV of some of the stuff I usually do that maybe is stuff that people don't really talk about. Not really like a topic that's glamorous or anything. It's just kind of like the random in-between stuff involved in this kind of experience. For example, as you can see on my screen here, I have Ableton running, and I have the audio sort of turned down for the sake of this recording, where I am through OBS here capturing my microphone, my actual phone, the camera, which is why, by the way, you see this OBS Studio watermark thing. Sorry about that. They want me to pay $80 to get rid of it now, or pay a subscription fee. And then also the camera's mic, so my phone microphone, and then of course the Ableton audio. And OBS is mixing that here in this mixer and recording all of it together. So when I actually finish the video file, it will have all of these audio tracks embedded where I can split them and do with them whatever I want. And usually they'll be in sync because it's pretty low latency how it's all being recorded. But anyway, that's just one side topic. That's not even actually the main thing I wanted to talk about. But that is sort of along the same track of like the in-between stuff that people don't really talk about. In this case, I just wanted to talk about building MIDI controllers like this one here for quick ideas. It's not something that's like pre-planned or mapped out. I'm just kind of like working on a project here, and I'm even using like I have this kind of stuff like mapped out already live, so like if I get sick of this loop, I can just like change it on the spot. And sometimes that's how the studio runs, is I just kind of have things going, and then when I get an idea from hearing this loop over, I'll just hear something new or some kind of change it can go into, and then I can either sit down and program it or perform it, all the usual stuff that you probably already know about. But what about things that are kind of more in between those things, like for example this pad that I have to make the audio quieter so that way when I talk to you, you can hear me. Even though I can split the audio in post, you can hear if I switch to my microphone here how the room audio is nice and decent versus when I actually bypass this mute or this dim. It's much louder. And then if I use the Ableton Direct audio here, let me pull up on screen Ableton here. You can see in Ableton here this effect right here, and I'll play the direct audio so you can hear the difference. Basically it's just turning the volume down at different levels, and that's it. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. It's also a good way I can hear myself think. But anyway, what do I need to accomplish for right now? I can take this dimming rack. I guess I'll have to point at it here. I don't always want to open this track and click the button with the mouse. And I also don't want to map it to my various performance things that I have mapped here. And I also don't want to use the Ableton push, although that would totally work because it's got a screen, it's convenient. But in this case, I want to use my iPad with Lemur, which is this app that lets you basically build your own MIDI controller. It's not as user-friendly as most of the apps that are out there now. This one's kind of a discontinued app that got acquired by a different company who recently actually created an update for it, which I have yet to check out, so that's interesting. This might actually be the comeback for Lemur. in 2025, so that's pretty cool. Check out Midi Kinetics if you're interested in that. But there's other options like OSC and all these other apps that you can easily find if you just put like MIDI controller or something in the app store. Anyway, I basically just want to quickly create a button like the buttons I have here. You can see I can control my drum tracks, and I can make these buttons latch so that way I don't have to hold them down. That's where the Lemur specific choice kind of comes in. Like, why do I choose Lemur instead of other apps? For me, the advantage of Lemur, besides already having some content in Lemur, like stuff I've already pre-built and, experience with Lemur, is the fact that it gives you a lot of flexibility to really program the MIDI controller a little bit deeper than just simply dragging and dropping buttons. Like, for example, this latch I created here relied on me to create a small bit of code inside the app which allows me to do that. And since you can sort of code your own app to a small degree, you can create much bigger, more complex controller systems if you really want it. But for now, let's just do something that you could do pretty much on any app like this, which is just to simply add a button. So I've put it in edit mode. Now I can simply just go here and add a custom button, and there you go, I've already pretty much done it. So if I wanted to create the 5 different layers here of the audio effect, as you can see here, the audio effect rack has 5 different presets that I made. All I have to do is go into this object I've created and change a few things. So I can go into properties here and then name my button, and now we're pretty much done. Keep in mind that this controller that I'm modifying in real time is currently active and controlling Ableton. So as you can see here, I've changed the drums. In real time, you can create your controller, but the thing is, I also have to map the actual MIDI of these buttons, so I can do that from within the app as well. Now, I guess the details of that isn't really as important. If you guys want a more in-depth look at this topic, I can definitely do a video just for that. But for now, we're just demonstrating how I can quickly have an idea. Say I was jamming on this session and I just really needed this to be automated. Well, now I go to Ableton here, click MIDI, and I click on initialize and hit this button, and just like that, it has been mapped. Now I can also, because this button is just going to make the volume fully loud, I can also copy this button. That way I don't have to start from scratch on the next button for the dim setting. So I'm going to create another button. We'll copy this and then paste, and here's my second button, and there you have it. Now, as you maybe might be able to see from there, this one says init and this one says dim. If I wanted to, I can scale the font and all that kind of stuff too, but again, this is like a quick thing that I'm just doing in theory. So since my MIDI mapping mode is still armed in Ableton, all I have to do now is click on the more dim preset, hit the button so it maps, after arming, of course, and now it has been mapped. So to demonstrate, I will switch to the Ableton audio, and then you'll see the volume change as I hit these buttons. And it's that simple. Now I can move the buttons, resize them, all that stuff. I'm just gonna move them over into the corner here. And this is just basically if I wanted to do like a live stream, say I was live streaming right now. Now I have a helpful way to just simply toggle between levels of audio in case someone had a question perhaps and I needed to speak into the microphone. I can just move over to my iPad and tap that button. I don't have to go into actual Ableton properly, change the master level, and then forget like where I had it, and all these other problems that can arise, or overwrite things that I have on my MIDI controller here. As you can see, the launch key does have Ableton integration, so to go access the mixer, all I have to do really is hit this button, and now my regular MIDI controller destinations are basically hidden in another page, and now this is acting as Ableton's actual mixer. But still, I don't want to go in menu diving, go over to the modular to change a filter, and then realize, oh no, I have to come back and change something, but I forgot to change the page, and now everything kind of goes out of whack. It's not a good way to organize your thoughts when you're kind of in the flow state. So I feel like Lemur is a huge part of the studio in that sense, where I can just create a quick sketch pad to make ideas and conveniences come to life fairly quickly. Now, there's another feature I'm going to create right now that is a lot more complicated, and unfortunately I have to use this camera angle. I can't really give you like a screen recording of the iPad since this is an old iPad and I haven't updated it, otherwise this software may not work and various other things, right? The easiest way for now, and with working with what I have, is to just have the camera where it is and show how quickly I can make an idea come to reality. So if you want a more in-depth tutorial, of course, make sure to do all the things like comment, subscribe, support me in any way you can, and I will always pour back into this, so the content should be getting better over time. Perhaps I'll have multiple camera angles, I'll have a video mixer of some kind, so that way, or a controller or something, so that way I can do stuff in real time or just do stuff in post. There's a lot of ways to dice it, but anyway, for now the idea is I need this automation here, which, as you can hear, is the bass pulsing. And what that's coming from is this effect on the bass channel, this one right here. It's basically just like a LFO tool type thing, and the MIDI controller is basically a 0 to 100% value when I latch this button. So even though the control on Ableton is a gradient from 0 to 1, basically a dry wet, right? The button doesn't care, because the button's just either sending 0 at an off state or 100% at an on state. But what if I wanted to create a fader next to it that controls the same parameter but has this button to basically move it to an on and off state on the fader? Well, you can do that with a minimal amount of scripting. So let's get started on that idea. So now, when I arm, now I can use my slider to control Ableton's macro. But to control the controller, I can use this button to quickly control it in an on-off type manner, which is really cool. It's kind of like presets on your controller, and it just gives you that much more control. I'm gonna go ahead and make this fader a little more accessible here. So now, when I rearm my interface here, you'll see I can still use this as before. You'll see when I use the slider, I can still control the macro, but also when I use the controller for the slider, the on-off state that controls the slider in Lemur will of course control Ableton as well. And now I can either gradually add the bass pulse, or I can simply turn it off completely or on completely. Also, conveniently, I no longer have to go in Ableton to change the volume level. So if I want to start jamming, if I'm feeling currently like I want to jam, then all I have to do is hit this button here. can keep going and just jam at literally the speed of my thought, and that's why I enjoy this crazy hybrid process I've developed over the years, where as soon as I think it, I can come over here to perform, I can come over here to compose, I can come over here to control, and I can come over here to just straight up craft the sound exactly how I want it. Of course, outboard synthesizers and gear are pretty self-explanatory, but I feel like this is sort of the overlooked wild card that people might want to try out, whether it's actually something like this or just straight up, more MIDI controllers. But I feel the flexibility of Lemur is incredible to be able to just in real time change things. So I guess that'll wrap it up for this video recording. I hope you enjoyed the performance, and if you want to have more in-depth look at Lemur and creating controllers, leave a comment, leave a like, leave any kind of engagement. It really helps me out, helps out the channel, helps it grow. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.